I don't have a script for this video. I was debating even recording anything. I do know I want to keep this video to 20 minutes because I do not want another hour-long synopsis BS thing that I did 2 years ago with the first movie. I'm gonna start with like a spoiler-free review of this movie. Five Nights at Freddy's 2. As of recording this, it's Sunday, the 7th. I saw it on Thursday, so I've had a couple days to think about the movie. Let's talk about the things that this movie did a lot better than the first. The suspense, the scares, the action. You know, I wasn't expecting a lot of action from this movie, but because it's Five Nights at Freddy's, there's no action in the games. But it was pretty good compared to the first. There were a few things that got me to jump. Deaths were more brutal, stuff like that. So it's definitely more geared towards horror, which I did like. Things that weren't very good, objectively. Dialogue for a good chunk of the movie was just not it. Even some of the best scenes in the movie really suffered from this weird, just the dialogue sounded corny, and there was a part of the movie where they mentioned how corny, someone said something, whatever, you know what, some of the dialogue was just really corny and cheesy, and it just wasn't it. So let's say from an objective standpoint, because, you know, this is a movie, this isn't, you know, it might have been made for the fans, but it wasn't, you know, it's still a movie that anyone can see. So from an objective standpoint, the movie is kind of like a 4 out of 10, I would say. Maybe a 3. People are saying it's the worst thing to disgrace mankind, but War of the Worlds came out this year. I also watched War of the Worlds, and I can safely say that this movie's at least more enjoyable. Also, at least the Rotten Tomato critics like that Cuties movie that came out, like, what, 4 years ago? Something like that. So, you know, I haven't listened to critics in a while. But yeah, objectively 4 out of 10. Now, coming from me, lifelong Five Nights at Freddy's fan. So I've been around since, like, you know, Markiplier was first turning on that camera and playing the games, whatever. So as a Five Nights at Freddy's fan who, you know, for the better part of his middle school and a good early part of high school, I was picking apart the lore and following Matt Pat and watching Mark and 8-Bit Ryan and whoever else was doing that stuff. I can say this movie is genuinely like a 9 out of 10. I think it is one of my favorite movies of the year. And, you know, a lot of people are saying, even FNAF fans are saying, we don't like this. And there will be a rant section of this video. There's going to be a rant section at the very end. But I want to get my thoughts out about this movie because I genuinely really enjoyed it. I fully understand why maybe general audiences weren't going to be big fans of this movie. I do think like the 11% on Rotten Tomatoes is a bit harsh. I think some of the things people are saying are a bit harsh, but thinking about it, which I will go into in my spoiler section, I'm gonna like walk through and talk about, you know, why I believe people didn't like it, why I liked it, and then we're gonna talk about, like I said, the rant section where I not really vent, but for lack of a better term, vent about how stupid some of these people are. These FNAF fans are, and you know what, stupid maybe isn't the right word because, no, actually, yes, this is a property for toddlers. It's a horror genre for those new to horror. It's little baby horror. It's not that serious. So I'm going to start talking about the things that I really, really enjoyed, some of the things that caught me by surprise with this movie, what I think about the future of the movie. I'm not going to go through like a synopsis like I did last time. I'm not going to waste your time with that. But I want to start off with the opening scene. I think, you know, if you've seen other reviews, which I assume you have if you're watching this, the opening scene's really good. The only problem with the scene is the dialogue is a bit and the child acting is a bit I think, you know, the worst parts of this movie are just They're not like abhorrently bad like war crime stuff. But the opening scene with the yellow rabbit grabbing a kid, bringing him to the back, almost killing him, you know, that was cool. I was, you know, the trailers were a bit misleading in the sense that there were instances throughout the movie where something happened or a character showed up, and the trailers made it seem like a lot of those would be longer or more fleshed out, and that's one of my problems with the movie, that, you know, this first scene was pretty short. What we saw with the yellow rabbit was pretty short. It was effective, but I wish there was more. Oh, yeah, did I say spoilers? I probably did. you know, there's part of that scene where the yellow rabbit is in this kitchen and he's, you know, in the darkness, and as Charlotte, who is trying to save this kid, leaves with the kid, like picks him up and leaves, you know, he just like emerges from the shadows, grabs a knife and starts like down the hall. That was really cool. And I think the way that she died was pretty cool. Okay, she falls down the trapdoor and the puppet picks her up. It was a good way to symbolize the bond, and I'm assuming that at that point when Charlotte was in the puppet's arms, the puppet was possessed. I'm no ghost expert. I don't know how long it takes for a ghost to possess something. It could be instant. I don't know. Opening scene was really good. I think just the general fan service of this movie was a lot better than it was the first. Because the first was definitely, like, they said the movie was for the fans, but after seeing FNAF 2, that first movie was pandering towards general audiences a whole hell of a lot more. Because there was no random fort building scene, there was no "I always come back" line that kind of came out of left field, I felt. All those like little things that were kind of random in the first movie were kind of gone, or at least they're better explained in this movie. After the whole setup stuff to see like where are these characters after the events of the first one, after 2 years, because this takes place in 2002, my birth year, 2002, goated year. Eventually we get to a point where Vanessa's having these like psychotic episodes and she's seeing the yellow rabbit. She almost kills someone because she thinks she's getting grabbed by him. Cool. I thought the hallucination stuff was really cool. The dream sequence for Vanessa, they do something similar to the first movie where Vanessa goes to sleep and like dreams about her father to kind of work with that trauma, similar to what Mike was doing in the first one with Garrett. I thought that this scene blows all of those other dream sequence scenes out of the water. First of all, Matthew Lillard's in it. I love Matthew Lillard. Been a fan of that guy since Scooby-Doo. Somewhere in that dream, it transitions from adult Vanessa to child Vanessa running into William Afton's like a workshop, and she's like hiding from him. So she hides behind like a coat rack. And this wasn't my favorite Easter egg, but it was the most shocking Easter egg in the entire movie. Vanessa turns to her right, and the camera pans, the camera shot changes, it pans from this character's feet all the way up to their head. Character's eyes glow. If you can't imagine, this is an animatronic. Character's eyes glow green, look at Vanessa. Like that kind of thing. I was at the edge of my seat the entire rest of the movie because Circus Baby showed up. Circus Baby was the last character I would have expected. It doesn't shock me that they at least tease Sister Location, but full on making a scarily like 1-to-1 accurate Circus Baby was not on my list of things that I was expecting. You know, there's a bit of context, obviously, that general audiences need to know with this kind of stuff. So this Circus Baby character coming out of nowhere, I understand why. That would make sense. There's a lot of things in this movie where they come out of left field, don't explain it, and then move on. So in that regard, I understand why people, like general audiences, see this as more just a setup movie for the best movie in the trilogy, Five Nights at Freddy's free. Five Nights at Freddy's 3 coming out, you know, probably 2-3 years. The green eyes, you know, we all know what the green eyes mean in Elizabeth. At least I'm Elizabeth. Ooh, first name basis type thing. With Circus Baby, you know, green eyes, at least this is, I'll admit, I have not been catching up on my FNAF lore in a while. Maybe this has changed, but, you know, green eyes on Circus Baby means she's possessed by Elizabeth Afton, and it was definitely intentional. Blue versus green eyes was definitely intentional. Then, you know, dream sequence over. There's the sequence where we first introduced to the old pizzeria, you know, in the present with these ghost hunters. And I'm not going to beat around the bush with this. Michael Afton gets introduced in this movie with no mention of Vanessa even having siblings in the first place in first or second. William Afton never brings up his children. Whatever. You can bring in a random character. It's fine. Whatever. He shows up and he's leading these ghost hunters around. They all just end up dying. Basically, Mangle rips a kid apart. McKenna Grace from Young Sheldon shows up as well with this group of people, and she is hearing this music box in her like ghost detection sound thing. I don't know. I haven't played enough Phasmophobia to know what any of that stuff is. It's just like a microphone that picks up ghost stuff. So she hears the music box in her headphones, and she's like following the trail. She breaks the music box, keeping Charlotte asleep, gets jump scared, as you do in the Five Nights at Freddy's universe, and she gets possessed. And I'll talk about the possession stuff later, but TLDR, I was a fan of it. I was a big fan of it. Abby goes to that location. It's like, oh my god, animatronics, they're here. And then later on tells Vanessa, oh yeah, there's a science fair thing going on. But then Abby's like, yeah, these animatronics helped me put together this little guy, this little Chica doll this robot she made. And then Vanessa's like, oh, well, how could they? Well, that's really cool. And it's like, yeah, Chica helped a lot. Freddy tried, but his fingers were too fat. Huh? So that obviously tips Vanessa off. She goes to the location, gets basically kidnapped by the puppet. She's trying to like talk to Charlotte because she was friends with Charlotte when they were kids. Or, well, friends with Charlotte. Mike goes back, saves Vanessa. Vanessa's like, oh, we gotta turn this shit off. We gotta bring him back. So Vanessa leaves Mike just to do whatever, just to play Five Nights at Freddy's, because he just starts playing Five Nights at Freddy's. The puppet's like, whoa, hold up, someone's trying to stop this. Activates the Wizards. It's a big part of the movie that the puppet is the only. Sorry, I should probably say this. The puppet is the only ghost in the movie. She just controls the rest of them, like wirelessly, like they're on strings, something like that. So she activates the Wizards, and Josh Hutcherson, Mike, plays Five Nights at Freddy's 2 with the mask, and Balloon Boy, he murks Balloon Boy. he kills him. Good on him though. And there was one Easter egg, probably my favorite Easter egg in the whole movie, during that sequence, where there's like 4 frames where you see Shadow Bonnie, and Mike sees Shadow Bonnie, so he's like, with his flashlight. And he's like, what is that? Also, complete like sidestep, something that doesn't really matter. While I was collecting background footage for this video, literally night 1, 3 or 4 a.m., I actually got the Shadow Bonnie Easter egg, which I thought was crazy. Crashed my game and everything. And then literally, it'll probably show up in the background, maybe you'll see it, but I also got the Endo 02 Easter egg during the main footage that I use, which that's crazy to me. But you know, that one was a blink and you'll miss it, and I almost missed it. Legitimately, it wasn't even a blink and you'll miss it. I was looking in the wrong part of the screen, so I didn't even make out the actual pattern of Shadow Bonnie's face. I saw just a bright white light on the side of the screen in my peripheral. And I was like, looking at my friends, like, was it? That was my favorite. That was my favorite Easter egg in the entire movie. Then Mike figures it out, like, right there, and it figures out how to disconnect the puppet from the animatronics, and then, you know, they all deactivate at 6 a.m. It's like what was that animation from a long time ago? The where Foxy was like, oh god damn it, you're Freddy. That one. It was basically like that. It turns out Chica's actually still active, and is at Mike's house. And Chica's entire like torso just blows up. And inside the puppet, like that, like jumps out at Abby and possesses her. And there's this whole thing. The makeup and was pretty good, I won't lie. They're like, we saved Abby, we saved the day. And then boom, boom, toy animatronics all come back. And Michael After's like, it was me. It was me. Okay, man. All right. Sure. And then Michael's like, kill them, crush their bones. And then da-da-dum-dum-dum, da-dum-dum-dum. They pulled a FNAF 1 versus FNAF 2 animatronic SFM. Right, just out of nowhere. Toy Bonnie gets curb stomped. Toy Freddy gets cut in half, basically. But anyway, the toy animatronics die, Mangle included. And Michael Afton gets clotheslined by the big guy Jeremiah. We never see Michael Afton again after that. That doesn't get wrapped up. So then Mike's like, okay, you know, you said you were gonna, like, Josh Hutcherson Mike, because there's 2 Michaels in this movie. Goes to Vanessa. It's like, well, you gotta stay away from us. You have been lying to us this whole time. You're not telling us everything, and every time you tell me something else comes up, and shit hits the fan. And you know what? Good on Mike. And then Mike leaves. Vanessa gets possessed by a puppet because I noticed this during the scene. I turned to my friend and said, they didn't deal with the puppet. They didn't deal with the puppet. The puppet's still there. I think it's crazy that this shot from the trailers just ended up being the last shot of the movie. The marketing was really good, though, I will admit, because I had no clue what was going to happen going into this movie. They kept the possession thing they kept the possession thing so in the dark. Yeah, marketing for this movie was really good at not spoiling it. And then we listened to the credits. Of course, everyone knows, got a Peak song playing. It's Been So Long by the Living Tombstone. I mean, I was expecting it. So, I mean, it didn't really shock me as much. It was still nice to hear it in a packed theater. And it was not packed. It was like 10:30 at night. I didn't have an energetic crowd either, which was kind of lame, but I was having the time of my life with that thing. So an end credit scene comes up, and they found one, a real one, and they pan, and you see a little bit of Springtrap. He's covered in like a plastic tarp, but you do see Springtrap, and he like reawakens. There was a line earlier in the movie after the OG animatronics get deactivated. After they beat up the toys, Golden Freddy himself doesn't show up, but his ghost appears, and he's like, "We can't stay here much longer. We're not gonna be here anymore, man. I can't hold this guy anymore." And Mike, listen, you're cooked, man. I mean, I can't hold this guy anymore. I'm moving on, man. I'm done with this shit. I'm done. And then Golden Freddy disappears. Obviously, just the line of "I won't be able to hold him anymore." Oh my god. That was a good line. There were some really good lines in this movie, I'll admit. And that was one of them. So yeah, Springtrap is awake. And there was another end credit scene, which earlier in the movie we meet Skeet Ulrich's character. And there's a reason I didn't bring him up, is because the scene is like 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and then he's gone. He's like, God, another hard line. You're so blinded by ambition, you don't see the devil sitting right next to you. Oh. Scott knows how to write a good line. Not a whole script, but a good line. He knows how to sprinkle them in there. But yeah, he's Henry Emily, but we don't know that. I think Mike says, I met with Henry after the fact, but Henry never says his name during the scene. At least I don't believe he does. And then the end credit voicemail is that, Mike, listen, there's something I need to tell you. I was William Afton's business partner. Like, it was hinted at. Like, if you knew their lore going into it, and he said that line about the devil sitting right next to him, you know what he's talking about, but a general audience doesn't. And that's what the biggest problem with this movie. Like, I think the Skeet Ulrich and the Michael Afton are probably the worst offenders of this. It's just, they don't explain who they are, really, when they first appear. Michael Afton, yeah, they explain at the end of the movie. They pull the same bullshit they did with William Afton in the first one, where it's like, Steve Raglan, I'm Steve Raglan. And then he shows up later and it's like, I'm actually evil. So it's the same thing here. I'm going to finish my father's legacy. Brother, you can't just have someone show up. You can. And it worked in the first movie because that was William Afton. But you can't have Michael Afton show up, be like, welcome back, Charlotte, after he leads these kids to their deaths. And then comes back, he's like, I am gonna finish his legacy. Whatever. But yeah, like the Wither, like it's cool to see the Wizards, the toys and whatever. But if you're not in the know, it's like the Withered animatronics show up for 5 minutes. For a general audience, it's like, well, why are they here? And I get that. Yeah, like a lot of things seem to happen in that movie from a general audience perspective. A lot of things in that movie just seems to happen because the plot needs it to happen. Like, oh, we need, like, the Wizards, oh, we need Mike to be separated from Vanessa for this part of the movie. So why don't we just give him 5 new animatronics to deal with? Sure. I mean, from a fan perspective, it's like, oh my god, it's Balloon Boy! It's Withered Foxy! But yeah, from a general audience perspective, it's like, what is going on? Like, why are we doing this? You know, I think Charlotte, the puppet's motivation was, you know, not entirely great, but like, I mean, her motivation makes sense. It's what led to that motivation that didn't make sense. Because in the beginning of the movie, she's like, I'm seeing this kid get kidnapped. I gotta talk to the parents. Hey, lady, there's a kid getting kidnapped. Excuse me? The adults are talking. And that's what I mean when I say the dialogue was not great. This child is in danger. I don't know if the exact word kidnapped was said, but they said a child was in danger. What parent is going to just ignore that? I'm going to talk, I know I've talked at length about a bunch of stuff. And I said I wanted to keep this video to 20 minutes, so I don't know how the hell I'm going to edit this. I've been speaking for 30 minutes about this. About really nothing. But I want to talk about Michael Afton. Because it's a good segue. We were just talking about him. I want to talk about Michael Afton and my problem with that character. And honestly, this will be a good segue into the rant section. So Michael Afton, right, we know we play as him in Five Nights at Freddy's Sister Location and Five Nights at Freddy's Pizzeria Simulator, the 5th and 6th games. We know we play as him. He doesn't have a lot of dialogue. He actually only, to my knowledge, has one scene where he talks, and it's an end credit scene for Sister Location. I don't know. I think the version of Michael Afton in the movie is not what I would have expected him to be at all. I think he's more evil and just kind of more psychotic than I would have thought he was in the games. Now, you could argue maybe he's already been enerdized. Maybe that's entered in there. I don't think so. That's a dumb way to look at it. I just think this is how the guy is. But thinking about the lore of that character, and honestly, the lore overall, the lore that the community has come to agree on, the timeline of events, character motivations, etc., a lot of them have just been determined by people in the fan base, like agreed upon. Like there's things in the book, like in the books and in the survival guides and in, you know, the spinoffs where Scott Cawthon is like, okay, yeah, this is confirmed. Like, oh, okay. We know the names of the dead children, you know, we know for sure who's in Circus. We know it's Elizabeth in Circus Baby. It's like, there's aspects of the series that we know for certain, and there's other things we don't. One of those, at least from my perspective, as somebody who kind of tapped out of the fandom during the Steel Wool era. Not tapped out, but tapped out of the lore stuff in the Steel Wool era. I guess Michael Afton, back to Michael Afton, he didn't act the way that I thought he would. But really, after thinking about it, specifically the scene from Sister Location where he's like, I did what you asked, I found her, I put her back together, I'm gonna come find you. Yeah, okay, there's some sort of loyalty to his father there. Did I think it was gonna go as far as I'm going to kill more people? No, but, you know, granted my limited knowledge of recent developments in the series, that doesn't, you know, the character's motivations, it's just so vague that, yeah, I can still see it. It's just not what I envisioned, you know? So I don't really have a problem with it, per se. It's more of just I have to adjust my thoughts. And sure, these are two different things. Movie versus game, two different things. Clearly the lore is not the same. And, you know, there's a lot of elements taken from the books, too, so clearly the lore is not the same. So yeah, do what you want with it, you know? I still have the game story. I still have what the fans think the game story is. And sure, these movies are going to inform us a little more of certain aspects, like maybe FNAF 2 really was just the puppet. You know, maybe the voice line where Chica's like, you know, I was the first. I've seen everything. Maybe that was still the puppet saying that, but through Chica. Yeah, it still lines up. And yeah, this might reframe what we think of this, like what we think happened in certain parts of the story. And I'm okay with that. Even if this isn't what people would have wanted based on what they thought the series was and what the story was, I think getting any sort of confirmation on any lore stuff from 2014, mind you, over a decade ago, 2014, yeah, that's cool. The reason the toy animatronics don't like adults, and they say their facial scanners don't like adults in the second game, oh, well, that's because the adults didn't help Charlotte before she got killed. I just don't get why that's not cool. And this is going to transition well into my rant about how people are just taking this too seriously. I'm seeing a lot of, like, obviously, if you just didn't like the movie because it wasn't, like, a good movie, sure, yeah, I agree with you. But the people who are out here saying that's not the lore, put a sock in it, bro. Because yes, while it would be cool to have a one-to-one story movie for Five Nights at Freddy's, I actually think those movies would have performed worse. I think the movies do a really good job at taking key things, key aspects of the story. The 5 missing children, Charlotte being the daughter of the business partner, being killed by William being killed by William Afton. They still kept that, right? The property is still staying true to the key moments, but it's using those key moments to tell a unique story. So one, not only general audiences can have a unique experience and a unique story and unique stuff to pull apart and theorize about, but also the fans. Mainly the fans. These movies are, yeah, they're an extension of the original games and the books as well, but they're reshaping the story so that you still have that little sense of, you know, mystery and intrigue. Don't get me wrong, there were a few things that I do agree might not have been the best idea, but even then, I don't think any of the major changes that they made were necessarily a bad idea. At the end of the day, I'm not going to this movie to see something regurgitated one-to-one to what I know. Like, sure, would it have been cool to see Charlotte die outside in the rain and the puppet comes out? Yeah, sure, it'd be cool to see those 8-bit minigames translated to live action. At the end of the day, the end goal is still met. The major parts of that short story are met. Charlotte is secluded from the rest of the kids, okay? And it's a little different, you know, because she goes to save a kid. But that kind of describes, you know, how the puppet is nurturing to kids. And it helps kids and guides them, right? She goes to try to help this kid and gets killed by William Afton in the dark where nobody sees her. Well, she doesn't get killed, but she gets stabbed and fatally wounded in the dark where nobody sees her. And in the end, William Afton killed his business partner's daughter. She dies, and the puppet is there to save her. The exact direction we got from point A to B to C to D was a little bit different. The setting was a little bit different, and just kind of the sequence was a little bit different, but we still hit those marks. I think, and that's the same thing with a lot of the other aspects of this movie. Yes, I think the runtime should have been maybe 20 minutes longer to specifically flesh out Skeet Ulrich's character, Henry Emily, because yeah, him revealing that I'm the business partner, she's coming for you, the puppet, like, you could have at least said the business partner thing an hour ago when we saw you once and then you never showed up again. But for the people that are saying this isn't exactly like the lore, I wanted the exact lore to be adapted. Sure, yeah, I understand that. But there's a difference between wanting the lore to be properly represented and wanting the story to be adapted one-to-one. There's a difference. And like I said, some of the decisions, like with Michael Afton, I'm not a huge fan of, but I'm willing to change my opinion. I think what they did with the puppet, with the possessions, was cool. I think, you know, it kind of, it was in a way an extension of her ability to control the animatronics. Well, she can control people too. She can possess them. It's another thing with the puppet's specific characterization, I think is a little bit different to what people were expecting. She's a little more vengeful. In the games, she seemed a lot more just like a character that was going to protect the children from William Afton, from the adults, whatever. And in this game, she was out for blood. The way that I see it is it actually seems like they just swapped the motivations and the characterization of Golden Freddy, who is the vengeful spirit, and they're swapping that with the puppet, who's the caring, nurturing, wanting to protect from William Afton. Because Golden Freddy in the first one, I wouldn't say Golden Freddy was out for blood, was in a super vengeful spirit. Yes, he kept tabs on William Afton and kept him locked away to keep everyone else safe, which is what I think would be more in line with what the puppet would do. What the puppet does is just filled with rage, because that's the last emotion she feels before she dies. You know, wants death to like the Afton family, wants death to all adults. I don't think that's such a bad change, especially since, like I said, I want a unique story. I want to be able to sit down and be shocked by some things. I don't want a one-to-one. I could go on for hours about different parts of this movie. I know the puppet was the biggest thing that I think people, like fans, just didn't like, and I personally believe they're taking it a little too seriously. I think they need to learn to adapt. Well, no, that's a little harsh. I think they just need to settle down, because the game story is going nowhere. This isn't the story of the games. This is its own unique story. So the story of the games is going to stay intact, and what you think of the games, you know, doesn't need to change based on the movies, because again, at the end of the day, they're two separate things. Scott was very adamant about the books being different things, but helped to guide us through certain parts of the lore in the games. The movies are doing the same thing. It's just a different medium, it's a different universe, it's a different timeline. As someone who kind of tapped out of the series because of the direction of the series, and not tapped out in the sense that I didn't play the games, I still play the games, but lore-wise, I haven't played Secret of the Mimic yet either, so it's like, do with that information what you will. I was just really happy to be able to return to something familiar like that. I don't know. It might not have been exactly the same. It wasn't the exact same feeling as I had when playing the games and watching the games when I was younger, but it was close. It was something similar. And I appreciate that. I mean, yeah, as of recording this, the movie's already made 100 mil, so get ready for Five Nights at Freddy's 3, fellas. Get ready for Five Nights at Freddy's 3. Actually, a little thing about that. Again, don't want to go too far into it, but I'm not, you know, super confident in what I think about what this movie's going to be, but I'm hoping with Mike Schmidt and Abby kind of not out of the picture, but separating themselves from Vanessa, I'm hoping that maybe this third movie puts them in the back seat and focuses on Vanessa, William, Michael, maybe even the crying child. Maybe we'll get some FNAF 4 stuff, because who knows, maybe Vanessa does have a sister and another brother. Circus Baby already had the green eyes. I don't know. But if the third movie simply focuses on the Afton family, that will be the best movie in the trilogy. 100%. Well, I thank you for listening to me ramble. There's probably stuff that I missed talking about, but, you know, let me know what you thought about the movie in the comments. Let me know, you know, how you think, let me know what you think of my opinion, what you think maybe the next movie is going to be like, you know, what you liked, what you didn't. Give me your theories too. Like, I want to see some of this stuff. This is not me officially coming back to YouTube. I just, you know, I liked this movie so much that I wanted to talk about it. And I'll probably be back for the third one. So, yeah, we'll see. Thank you for listening to me bullshit. It's been almost an hour. Bye!